In a dim tavern, a tense woman serves fruit as the room fills with loud chatter and unease. The patrons talk about a ruler from the distant borderlands, and one listener realizes they may be speaking of the very man from the rumors. The story grows darker as they describe a feared lord who built his influence through overwhelming power, and someone adds the startling claim that this figure is actually human. They say no nation remains in that wild forest region anymore, and that he lives in a fortified stone castle surrounded by giant plants and anthills, using strange abilities no one else can reproduce. The hooded ruler hears that a distant country refused to hand over its human slaves, while companions stay close and mention Shiro-sama from that remote border region. His expression hardens as he declares that if rulers keep thinking that way, he will send in troops and wipe them out. The scene shifts to the prefectural university's School of Agriculture, focusing on the plant ecology laboratory and its research farm. At the campus research farm, a shovel strikes the soil as someone yelps from the strain of the work. The worker pauses and hopes he can finish the task before the day is over. He is revealed as Professor Asada Shiru, a doctor of agricultural science, standing with his tool over his shoulder. Shiro is thanked for the help, but the student still sounds hesitant as he addresses him respectfully. The students remark that graduate work usually does not involve this kind of labor, then admit that with Asada-sensei around, it almost feels like they are real farmers. The girl excitedly says working under him during this practical is a great honor, adding that he is an expert and a leading authority on plant ecology. She keeps praising him, saying Shiro has a truly remarkable dream, which leaves the others asking what that dream is. The students explain that Shiro's goal is to save children through his research, pointing out that 30 million children die from malnutrition around the world each year. Looking over the fields, a student wonders why they are growing so much silver vine when the world is facing a food crisis. Shiro says he is glad they asked, then explains that silver vine is dioecious, grows vigorously, and can be used both as food and in many kinds of medicine. With a confident smile, Shiro warns them not to underestimate how useful silver vine can be. One student quickly apologizes and says he understands, then hurries back to work at once. As the students head off, Shiro sighs and wonders why people always ramble like that around others. Shiro thinks of Hana and reminds himself that this work is for her, believing he must stop others from suffering the same tragedy that took his little sister. Even as he works, Shiro was suddenly struck by a strange sense of emptiness he cannot explain. He insists that he will save children across the world, but when Hana comes to mind, he can only force himself to focus and get back to work. The spell changes her condition in an unexpected way. Realizing the impact sounded like metal, he immediately goes on alert. Sensing danger, he urgently warns the others that something is wrong and orders them to get down. He throws himself over the students to shield them as he realizes too late that they have uncovered an unexploded bomb. A blinding explosion erupts and swallows everything in an instant. After the blast, Shiro painfully regains awareness, checks whether the others are all right, and realizes he is somehow still alive. As the smoke clears, he sees the devastated grounds and a towering cloud rising in the distance, revealing the scale of the disaster around them. Shiro stares at a massive tree in disbelief and realizes it is far larger than anything a normal domestic species should ever become. Looking at the surrounding buildings, he notes they resemble a pre-modern settlement and concludes they are no longer in Japan. As the group reels from the shock, one of the girls fears the Antinos may be attacking while Shiro stays tense and silent. Before they can recover, several armed beastkin girls surround Shiro and the students, forcing them into a dangerous standoff. A fox-eared woman steps forward in confusion and demands to know who they are, while also questioning their strange clothes and whether they are human at all. Someone nervously wonders if she is a therianthrope and whether her ears and tail are real, while the fox-eared woman notices their whispering with suspicion. The woman sharply insists that she is the one asking questions as Shiro struggles to sit up and face the threat. Shiro introduces himself as Professor Asada from K University and explains that the other two are his students, but the woman says she has no idea what he is talking about and calls him crazy. The moment becomes overwhelming and emotionally difficult for both of them. Dismissing his denial, Sabana says she does not care who they are because either way, they are going to be used as entertainment. Savannah orders the young women taken to the slave rooms while declaring that Shiro will be sent to the arena, and one of the girls calls out to him in alarm. As they are moved through the settlement, Shiro takes in the surroundings and realizes this place feels completely unfamiliar. The girls are stunned to see what looks like an entire town inhabited by therianthropes, and one of them blurts out her amazement. They notice a beastkin girl butchering the carcass of a giant ant, and one student stares at it in disbelief while wondering what she is even looking at. Shiro studies the scene and starts to suspect there may be a specific reason behind what they are seeing. A huge structure comes into view, and the overwhelming sight makes everyone stop in shock. Realizing where he has been brought, Shiro recoils and blurts out in disbelief that this is the arena. Hearing the roar from inside, Shiro remarks that the cheering is unbelievably loud and demands to know what is happening in there. Savannah notices his curiosity and mockingly invites him to take a look as the crowd below erupts with excitement. From above, Shiro sees the arena floor, where two small fighters stand facing each other while spectators pack the stands. Shiro realizes in shock that they are being forced to fight beastmen, and he is disturbed that this had been expected from the start. He sees that his opponent is only a small human girl, shaken as she clings to a weapon, and the sight leaves him stunned. The spell changes her condition in an unexpected way. Savannah grows impatient and declares that if Shiro will not act, she will make the first move instead. Shiro panics and desperately shouts for her to stop and not do it. Something tears across the arena in a sudden violent impact, throwing the moment into chaos. The crowd erupts, with one spectator gleefully calling it a complete defeat as the arena turns into a spectacle. The human slave collapses after a single strike, and her condition makes the scene feel brutal and one-sided. Shiro is horrified that the girl has not surrendered and is somehow still trying to continue, leaving the crowd confused by her refusal to give up. Mia sees what is happening and grimly realizes the girl is avoiding fatal damage on purpose, dragging out the fight in a cruel and tormenting way. Shiro compares the arena's cruelty to cats tormenting prey after the catch, and the memory brings back something else he cannot forget. He recalls Hannah being denied food, while someone coldly insists she already consumed the family's food without permission, and another voice cruelly says Hannah has had nothing to eat since yesterday. The memory makes his anger rise, as he realizes this is the same pattern again, where the weak are crushed and nobody cares. He looks at the cheering crowd in disgust and realizes the horror is even worse, because this entire society not only accepts the cruelty but openly enjoys it. Shiro breaks down and cries out that this has gone too far, horrified that they are willing to treat someone that way. A hand grips a weapon and a harsh voice orders him to stop whining, warning that if he keeps making noise, he will be silenced immediately. Shiro freezes in alarm as sudden movement cuts across his vision and the pressure around him spikes at once. Maya steps in with her blade raised and tells him to move back because she will handle this next, as the clash turns chaotic beside him. Another woman erupts in fury and warns Mia not to lay a hand on her student. The confrontation explodes into a violent strike as the two women collide head-on. Mia coldly tells Shiro not to make a scene, reminding him that countless slaves die in this arena every day. She stares at him in disbelief and asks if he is really going to keep looking at the world that way. Shiro, shaken and furious, fires back that huge numbers of people die and insists that no one should brush that aside. As emotion surges through him, he condemns the place as a truly ugly world. Realizing he cannot win by strength alone, Shiro hardens his resolve and decides he will destroy this twisted world with what he still has on hand. He suddenly runs off, and the women behind him shout after him that he is an idiot and cannot possibly escape. From above, Mia notices his movement and realizes with surprise that he is not fleeing at all, but heading down into the arena. Shiro steps forward with determination while the battered child lies behind him, showing he has chosen to stand between her and the violence. He declares that he will fight in the girl's place and demands that, if he wins, they must treat the child. Facing the arena and the onlookers above, Shiro calls directly to Savannah and urgently asks for permission to enter the fight. Mia gives a cold, confident smile and says she likes this, telling him to do whatever he wants. An announcement rings out that an unusual match is about to begin. The crowd introduces their star fighter with excitement, calling her the warrior Mia. Shiro is presented as her opponent, and the announcer identifies him as the human slave Asada Shiro. The beast women in the stands cheer loudly and tell Shiro to hang in there, while also mocking his awkward stance and saying he will never beat Mia like that. As Shiro raises his weapon in a clumsy stance, the crowd judges him as a complete amateur and doubts he has any real fighting skill. Watching him closely, Mia grows suspicious and wonders what he is planning. Mia drops low and remarks that he really could not abandon the girl, while Shiro quietly answers that he could not. Shiro realizes that feline fighters tense their bodies right before attacking, and as Mia lunges, he moves on that exact cue and confirms his suspicion. Barely avoiding the strike, Shiro thinks that if he can predict the instant she attacks, he can still dodge her. Mia warns him not to underestimate her, but Shiro acts at that instant and crushes what he had timed with her attack. Mia suddenly recoils mid-charge and stares at him in shock as the momentum of the fight breaks. Rubbing at her eyes, Mia angrily accuses him of trying to blind her and insists that kind of trick will not work on her. Shiro stays focused and silently prays that his plan will work. He reveals that before the match, he secretly grabbed some silver vine galls from the field and is now betting everything on them. Remembering what he saw in town, Shiro becomes convinced that the substance should affect cat-like fighters. He explains that the cut-up ants resembled Argentine ants and carried iridomer messin, a compound that affects cats, and he suspects the substance was being extracted and sold. Shiro recalls that silver vine contains several compounds that strongly affect cats, and he becomes certain it should work. The effect hits Mia all at once and she staggers as the atmosphere turns deeply uneasy and her composure falls apart. Seeing her unsteady and overwhelmed, Shiro realizes his risky move succeeded and that his gamble paid off. Shiro admits he is relieved, realizing Mia had already reached her limit trying to avoid him. Mia struggles to keep herself together and realizes she cannot endure much longer. Shiro tells her not to push herself any further as he reaches out. As he moves closer, Shiro says a strong effect should already be spreading through her, and Mia panics as he nears, the moment becoming deeply uncomfortable. Shiro watches closely as Mia's composure falls apart, the strange effect clearly overwhelming her. Barely able to endure it, Mia begs him to stop, as the pressure becomes too much for her to handle. The onlookers stare in shock, one unable to believe a human this small could corner Mia so completely, while another asks what just happened to her. Shiro recalls that felines have vulnerable points near the base of their tails, which explains why Mia is reacting so intensely. The spectators recoil in disgust and confusion, shouting that it is revolting and asking what on earth is happening. Mia completely loses control under the pressure, and the crowd is horrified when someone realizes she has unsteadied herself. The crowd erupts, calling Shiro an idiot and saying he had ruined a beautiful warrior, while objects are thrown and others demand that he leave. Mia trembles in humiliation and distress, feeling that this was not how things were supposed to end. Shiro reflects that he could not have won through strength alone, that he had no other choice, and quietly asks for forgiveness. As Shiro looks on calmly, someone tells him he does not need to keep humiliating her and urges him to strike the gong, and he agrees. The gong rings loudly through the arena, signaling the end of the match. The announcement declares Asada Shiro the winner, and the arena erupts in unrest as he stands before the crowd. From the entrance, Savannah storms in, demanding to know what that human had done to Mia, and shouting for her money back. Shiro states that he has fulfilled his side of the agreement and demands that the child be treated now. Savannah mocks his strange trick, but after a tense pause, she accepts the result, and Shiro does not back down. Savannah orders her people to carry the child to the medical office at once, while the others react in surprise. As Shiro watches them handle the child, someone coldly remarks that slaves who lose are not supposed to receive medical treatment. The child is taken away, and Shiro reassures himself that proper treatment must be underway, because basic human rights should still apply. Before Savannah can leave, Shiro stops her and asks if she is willing to make a deal, leaving Mia visibly confused. Shiro reveals a powder he made from fruit galls he had picked earlier, explaining that it is silver vine powder and that he already used it in the fight. He tells Savannah the powder has a powerful effect on her kind and says selling it could make her a fortune. Savannah glares at him and warns that she could simply kill him and take the recipe for herself. Shiro calmly counters that her people would not know how to make it, because silver vine requires a special cultivation method, then suggests that she hire him instead. He presses the point by saying the substance has a strong effect and could bring in enormous profit if sold. Savannah's attitude shifts as she admits the offer is interesting and says she prefers a practical approach. She falls into thoughtful silence, clearly tempted as she weighs Shiro's proposal. Savannah is overwhelmed by the effect and strongly declares it remarkable, saying she feels unsteady. She grows more unsettled and says the feeling is making her lose control. Another voice urgently calls for Savannah and says that should be enough, while Mia nervously tries to calm the situation. Savannah turns to Shiro and admits that what he did was not bad at all. Shiro suddenly rushes out of the room without hesitation. Savannah cools down and quietly wonders where he is hurrying off to, then guesses there is only one place he could be going. As he runs, Shiro worries about what happened to the girl and blames himself for wasting time on pointless matters, even after winning her freedom. He urgently asks where the infirmary is, and someone answers that it is nearby but seems confused about why a human is asking. Shiro throws open the infirmary doors and storms inside, while Mia follows behind him in surprise. The spell changes her condition in an unexpected way. A beast woman snaps at Shiro for barging in so suddenly and demands to know who he is. Shiro grimly realizes their treatment methods come from ancient practices and judges them far too primitive. As the beast woman insists she will handle it herself and scoffs at a mere human interfering, Shiro pushes forward and orders her to move aside. Savannah steps in and calmly tells the others to let Shiro do it, leaving them stunned. Shiro quickly prepares a temporary herbal remedy and explains that the leaves can help stop the bleeding and offer antiseptic support, even if it is only an emergency measure. The injured girl looks helpless as Shiro admits his agricultural knowledge is meant more for cultivation and environmental work than for urgent medical treatment like this. He curses under his breath and realizes applying the leaves directly is not ideal if he wants to keep the wound sterile. Even so, he decides stopping the bleeding has to come first while the girl remains weak and distressed. Aware that this is outside his expertise, Shiro steels himself and vows to do everything he can to save the child. After working through the procedure, Shiro breathes out in relief and notes that somehow it seems to be working. The injured girl slowly opens her eyes and blinks in confusion as consciousness returns. As Shiro stands over her bedside, she weakly asks where she is and wonders if she is dreaming. Shiro gently tells her she is safe now and explains that while his rough treatment in the arena looked alarming, her wound was not as deep as it seemed. Realizing what happened, the girl tearfully understands that Shiro was the one who saved her and thanks him from the bottom of her heart. Calling him Big Brother, she thanks him again, and Shiro falls silent as the words catch him off guard. Another girl watches with tears in her eyes, then begins applauding the emotional moment. Savannah enters smiling and praises the scene as moving, but also bluntly reminds them that Shiro is still the same fool who went out of his way to save a helpless child. A nearby student protests that Shiro is not a villain at all and insists he is always the kind of person who helps little kids, while another nervously warns him not to say anything that might anger Savannah. Savannah coldly says they will understand soon enough, because in her eyes, Shiro is the real villain. The bound girl says that thanks to that so-called villain, she is still alive, and tells Shiro he should take pride in that. Shiro asks why they are being led there, and the beast woman says there is a lot to discuss but insists he should calm down first. Savannah orders the girls to find a house for their honored guests, and they immediately answer that they understand. In the quiet room, Shiro stays by the recovering girl's bedside as she looks at him in silence. With a smug grin, the beast woman tells him not to get the wrong idea because she will not turn that girl back into a slave, then says he should just take her to the house. The scene shifts as one of the girls washes up and the mood lightens. She happily says the shower feels wonderful and admits she never imagined she would get to bathe in a world like this. Shiro remarks that he feels a little more alive now too. As they wash off, Shiro notes that the setup resembles ancient Greek bathing, and another voice explains that the device simply lets water flow down from overhead, while also pointing out that Shiro knows a surprising amount beyond his field of study. A girl praises Shiro as expected of their teacher, then teasingly says that even using silver vine powder as a bargaining chip was impressive. Shiro awkwardly denies any grand plan and says it was honestly just a gamble. Shiro reflects that his deal with Mia somehow worked out and notes that they have been given honored guest treatment with a house on the edge of town. He adds that if they can keep caring for the slave girl here, her recovery should go smoothly. After the bath, the girls reappear looking refreshed, with one happily declaring how much better she feels as Shiro reacts with mild surprise. A sudden commotion erupts outside, and the group wonders what is happening and why it has become so noisy. One of the girls opens the door and sharply demands to know who is there, reminding the visitor that the chief already gave them permission to stay in this house. The answer comes immediately as a crowd of beast women rushes toward the house in a chaotic wave. The group freezes in alarm, with Shiro and the others staring at the growing crowd and wondering why so many beastmen have gathered there. The beast women press in excitedly around Shiro, praising him as a strong male and calling out to him with overwhelming intensity, making the situation deeply awkward. Watching the scene unfold, the group realizes the crowd does not seem openly hostile, though Shiro still nervously doubts that they are safe. Even so, one girl warns that with this many beastmen surrounding them, they would be in serious trouble if the crowd suddenly attacked. The beast women crowd around Shiro, urgently begging him to choose them and insisting they can no longer hold themselves back, making the scene even more overwhelming. Just as the crowd pushes forward, Mia steps in with a weapon and coldly declares that no one will go any farther, ordering them to stay back. Shiro recognizes Mia from the arena and stares in confusion, wondering what she is doing there. Mia bluntly says she never wanted to come, but explains that she has been assigned as his bodyguard. Mia reveals that because Shiro won in the arena, beast women now see him as the strongest available male, so Savannah sent her to protect him as an honored guest. One of the girls sharply drives the others away, mocking Mia for losing to Shiro and treating her like a pathetic rival, while Mia bristles at the insult. Flustered and irritated, Mia curses the situation and bitterly asks why she has to guard a human just because she lost once, while everyone keeps staring at her. Another girl teases Mia for blushing after Shiro defeated her and says her reaction made her feelings obvious, causing Mia to explode and warn her not to push any further. A calm woman tells Ayatsuji not to be rude to someone assigned to protect them, while also thanking Mia and admitting things could have gone badly if the crowd had attacked. The girl awkwardly insists she was only worried about her teacher, but Mia quietly realizes Shiro's kindness and the arena defeat have left a stronger impression on her than she wants to admit. Mia grows flustered and confused, wondering whether her reaction is just beastman instinct responding to a strong male or something more troubling. As the influence on her deepens, she realizes the mental haze and Shiro's unfamiliar presence are only making her condition harder to control. Another person bluntly points out that the bodyguard powder works on her too, leaving Mia stunned and embarrassed. He calmly explains that after a loss like hers, she cannot return to the arena for a while, because if the scars vanish too suddenly, people would suspect she had been secretly pardoned. Mia explodes in frustration and calls him a bastard who somehow knows everything, while he remarks that her chief may be severe but is still considerate, since this simply means Mia has been reassigned from arena duty to bodyguard duty. He dryly agrees that the man talks far too much. The woman at the table addresses Shiro by name and tells him he is overthinking Beastman intentions. With a cool warning, she tells him that if he digs too deeply, he could end up destroying himself. Mia is shocked to see Savannah there and demands to know when she arrived, while the other man notes that someone of her rank would not bother hiding her presence. As the chair scrapes forward, Savannah coldly says that for now she wants to test just how capable Shiro really is. Savannah stands and takes control of the room, signaling that the discussion is moving forward. She tells everyone to sit and says it is time to discuss what happens next. With Shiro, Mia, and the others gathered around, the meeting settles into tense silence as Savannah leads. Savannah asks Shiro about the plant he brought, confirms it is silver vine, and demands to know how long large-scale cultivation would take. Shiro explains that if the climate and seasons match his world, silver vine would take nearly a year, with planting from November to April and harvest from August to September. Hearing that, Savannah falls silent and judges the timeline far too slow. The dark-haired woman firmly rejects that delay, while another woman says they will have to make do with the fields for now, because they cannot get what they want right away. Savannah coldly says she is not patient and refuses to wait. She asks whether Shiro knows any way to speed up the plant's growth, but he admits there is no immediate solution. The dark-haired woman then points out the more important fact that they already have another source of silver vine, though she notes the quality is much worse because it comes from the ants. The dark-haired woman asks if Shiro had not noticed the giant ant corpses being sold in the city on the way there, and he admits he had not paid attention to them. Shiro says he saw the giant ants using the same chemical substance as silver vine for defense, and that discovery made him realize the connection. He reasons that the giant ants in this world may be a similar species, and that the substance taken from them is likely sold as a luxury item, earning praise for his sharp insight. The explanation turns to a neighboring country called Antinos, which is said to be ruled by those insects. The dark-haired woman explains that the ants store a strange substance inside their bodies and release it as a weapon when they fight, adding that it is what her world called iridomyrmecin. Another woman cuts in bluntly, saying she does not care about the name and only knows it causes intense pain. She adds that beastmen are especially vulnerable to that scent, so when they fight the ants, they are easily overwhelmed by it. The group explains that there are very few chances to capture ants because of that weakness, which is why the drug made from them is traded at a very high price. The woman then says Shiro's arrival has changed the situation significantly. The dark-haired woman presses Shiro to stop acting clueless and says he should already be able to think of a way to defeat the ants. A harsh smile spreads across the speaker's face as the decision is made to begin a war. With a cold stare, the girl declares that she will kill the ants and seize all the drugs they possess, while another voice agrees that selling them across Beastman nations would bring huge profits. Shiro is startled as the dark-haired woman says that with his unusual knowledge, they can strengthen their army and wipe out the ants. The girl smiles grimly and bluntly frames the coming conflict as war. As Shiro and the others look on, the plan hardens into exterminating the ants and taking everything they have. The dark-haired woman quickly asks where the nearest ant colony is located. A map is indicated and the answer comes at once that the nearest colony is right there and would be the easiest place to attack. The beast-eared girl asks for permission to scout the colony herself, leaving the others briefly caught off guard. Thinking seriously, Shiro says he needs to confirm whether his knowledge of ants from his own world also applies here, and he adds that he would like to capture some alive and examine them if possible. Shiro reflects that if he can learn the ants' traits, they can create more effective weapons against them, and the possibility of developing new weapons clearly draws his interest. Holding up a round object, the woman coldly says she will give Shiro a chance. She crushes it in her hand and says this will be a real reconnaissance force, not just a stealth mission, adding that Shiro must use her soldiers to conquer the colony if necessary. The beast-eared girl explains that the item was once taken from the Dryads and can be used to communicate over long distances, telling him to use it to contact her if anything happens. As Shiro talks about examination, one woman awkwardly questions whether that is too cruel, while another remarks that it sounds just like him. The robed woman smiles gently, and Shiro falls silent as he watches her. She reassures him that her earlier reaction was only for show and tells him not to worry. She says what defines a human is not appearance but intelligence and care for others. Looking at his hand, Shiro concludes that if the ants also possess those qualities, they should be treated as human, though they still need to confirm it. A cheerful girl says Shiro was only buying time to investigate the ants, and he reacts in surprise when she calls him sensei. The girl warmly tells Shiro she knew he was truly a kind person. The woman notes they still have not heard the girl's name. The girl says her name is Fiona and asks to join them. The woman refuses and tells Fiona to return to her parents after healing. Fiona begs to stay and says her parents are slave owners. Shiro says they need a secret weapon against the ants. He proposes making insect repellent spray from chili peppers. Shiro explains capsaicin could work as a bug repellent in battle. The beast-eared girl says it is not a real weapon and sounds useless. She leaves to practice, saying she can only rely on her own strength. Shiro questions how to use repellent in combat as the others react. The beast-eared girl notices Fiona is gone, and Shiro reacts in confusion. Shiro admits that while he wants to make insect repellent, his real objective is something else entirely. He reveals that what he truly wants to create is insecticide. The others are stunned as they repeat the word in disbelief. Shiro explains that at his university they grew Dalmatian chrysanthemums, which naturally contain pyrethrin, and even a small amount can kill insects because it is effectively poison to them. He adds that if they can extract it with ethanol as an organic catalyst, it could become a powerful weapon. Shiro quickly says they should avoid killing the ants if possible and use that method only as a last resort. He warns that if the beastmen learn about the insecticide, they could distribute it to their forces and turn the conflict into a massacre. He insists the substance must remain exclusively in human hands and only be used when lives are at risk. One girl immediately says she will follow whatever Shiro wants, while another tells him to focus, and Shiro nervously points out that telling the beastmen would at least protect them from the ants. She apologizes for burdening everyone with her selfishness, wearing a faint but uneasy smile. The group heads for the laboratory at once, determined to hurry and produce the insecticide. Inside, they find dried and preserved chrysanthemum flowers, and Shiro notes there is a huge supply even if it is still less than usual. Her condition becomes unstable under the full moon. After the ethanol is left to study for several days, the pyrethrin separates out. Shiro explains that the solution still has to be concentrated to increase its purity, so they use a rotary evaporator to make it more practical. With the extraction finished, they declare the insect spray complete and say the last step is transferring it into metal containers from their original world with some plant stems. They also complete insect repellent for the beastmen, though they admit the quantity is small because they do not have enough ethanol and will have to rely on whatever alcohol they can find. As they work in the lab, Shiro admits he still does not fully understand whether the equipment is really connected to their world, while one girl panics that she cannot make any more, and another says she is completely exhausted. With their preparations for the mission finished, they decide to report back to Savannah, and the group answers with confidence. After reporting the ant mission to Savannah, Shiro is named leader of the expeditionary force, while Mia is appointed acting military commander, and the recon mission is scheduled for 1 week later. On the night before departure, Mia lies awake and realizes the long-awaited moment will finally come tomorrow. She vows to do whatever it takes to restore her pride and erase the memory of that humiliating day. As she recalls that day, she remembers a deeply embarrassing defeat, and the memory leaves her shaken with frustration. Outside the room, someone asks what is wrong and warns Mia that if she does not sleep soon, she will regret it tomorrow as the door slowly creaks open. Mia admits that whenever she thinks back to that day, she becomes frustrated and her whole body tightens with stress. Shaken with anger and embarrassment, Mia demands that the other person take responsibility for what happened and furiously calls him a bastard. He reacts with uneasy surprise at her unstable condition and distress, then says she is lucky it happened in battle because otherwise he would not have overlooked it. While Mia says she had no choice, Mia reflects that the substance he brought caused one beast girl to lose control, yet she feels strangely unable to feel guilty about it. She wonders if coming to this world has dulled her sense of ethics, or if something else is changing inside her. A woman quietly peers through the doorway and calls for Sensei under her breath. The scene shifts to Sabana's bathroom. Soaking unsteady and deeply suspicious, Mia decides that Shiro must be hiding something, then coldly says that if he is, she already has ways to deal with him. As both of them hold their capes close, the narration says the war is about to begin. After several days of travel, the expedition finally arrives at its destination. The group stares up at the towering landscape in shock as someone struggles to process what they are seeing. The place is revealed to be the ant colony of Antinos. Shiro notes that the ants seem even larger than the giant species from Australia in his world, while a frightened girl admits she is scared. Shiro says they will follow the plan and begin with a peaceful approach, but if negotiations fail and they are forced into battle, they will retreat while using a repellent. One beast woman cuts in with a sharp snort and mocks the others for sounding pathetic. Mia suddenly charges ahead before anyone can stop her, declaring that she will go in first. As she rushes forward without hesitation, the others are stunned that she is trying to confront them head-on from the start, and someone remarks that she never listens. The rest of the group follows after her, admitting there is no helping it and announcing that they are going in too. With her weapon ready, Mia narrows her eyes and realizes the enemy has already appeared. Shiro urgently tells Mia to wait and not attack, while she looks frustrated that he has already caught up to stop her. Shiro steps in front of her and orders her to lower her weapon, insisting that they will try communicating with them first. Mia reluctantly backs off, saying they can go ahead and show what they can do. Facing the ants, Shiro calmly states that they did not come to fight. The ant side remains armed, while Shiro explains that they came to see whether friendly relations are possible. Shiro orders cart number 5 to be brought out, and his companion immediately acknowledges the command. Shiro offers several barrels of nectar as a gift. The group stares in confusion, repeating the word nectar as they try to grasp what he means. He explains that nectar is made from sugars and amino acids found in plants, making it an excellent food source for the ant people, and says that if they agree to be friends, he can provide it regularly. The ant people gather around the barrels, clearly puzzled by the unexpected offer. Shiro reflects that ants keep aphids much like humans keep canaries, and because aphids produce nectar and carry it on their backs, he hopes this gift might help them become friends. One girl is impressed that Shiro has already planned for peaceful relations, though she still watches nervously. An ant warrior suddenly starts making strange vibrating sounds as if trying to respond. The others grow alarmed and ask what the ant is saying. Shiro realizes ants communicate through vibrations, and the rhythmic sounds remind him of the way petioles make noise. He immediately recognizes this as clear proof of intelligence. Shiro holds out his hand, thanks the ant person, and explains that this is how humans show friendship with a handshake. He calmly takes the ant warrior's hand, sealing the gesture of friendship face to face. His companions erupt with relief and excitement, celebrating that they really managed to make peace with the ant people, while one girl still looks uneasy. A towering, queen-like figure suddenly appears and coldly asks why he is shaking hands with the enemy. Shiro freezes in shock as the ant warrior's attitude changes instantly. The queen-like figure raises a glowing substance and orders her warriors to receive her mana and destroy the foreigners. The ant warriors are affected at once, and the group realizes their eyes have changed color. The transformed ant soldiers surge forward together with weapons raised as hostility breaks out across the area. Shiro panics and demands to know why they suddenly turned hostile as the enemy closes in. Realizing there is no other option, Shiro orders everyone to use the repellent and fall back, and his allies obey at once. The queen-like enemy lets out a cold laugh and declares that forcing matters is much easier this way. Mia steps forward, identifies the enemy as the strongest one, and proposes settling everything in a one-on-one fight. Mia rushes in and clashes head-on with the black-armored foe as the duel begins in full force. Their blades lock, and the enemy calmly judges that they are evenly matched. Mia blocks another strike, but the enemy suddenly fires material from an all-gland defense and catches her off guard. Shiro realizes the attack matches what he expected and warns that the enemy can spray material from its gland, so they must stay alert and defend properly. Mia tries to endure it, but even through her blood shield she notices a strange scent and senses that something is wrong. The powder bursts across Mia's face and she recoils in shock as it hits her directly. Shiro urgently throws cat leaf powder to her and explains that it is a mild stimulant, telling her to use that instead. As the stimulant takes effect, Mia says the pain is bringing her back to her senses while the enemy looms nearby. Mia suddenly lunges at Shiro, and the blow comes so fast that he is nearly overwhelmed on the spot. She knocks him down and restrains him with alarming force, while the others freeze in shock at the sudden turn. Mia appears unsteady and holds up a bottle, and Shiro stares at her in disbelief as he calls her name. Shiro realizes at once that the bottle contains insecticide, not repellent, and demands to know why Mia has something so dangerous. Mia gives only a vague, unsettling reply, and her expression makes the moment feel deeply wrong. As Shiro presses her about the insecticide, Mia keeps smiling to herself and offers no clear explanation. Their allies rush in to report that the enemy is retreating, calling for the commander as the battlefield suddenly shifts. Maya reacts with disturbing intensity and declares that if they are running away, she will wipe them out with the insecticide. Before she can act, Shiro strikes from behind and stops her with a decisive blow. Mia snaps back in shock and Shiro realizes with alarm that the same strange powder is involved again. Shiro grabs her and warns that this was supposed to be the last resort, saying she should not use it so casually unless everyone is in danger. Mia glares at him and angrily reminds him that she commands this force, saying this is already the second time he has acted on his own and demanding that he understand. Shiro is left stunned by her intensity, his face tightening with confusion and unease. Mia drops to the ground and gives a reluctant, shaken reply, sounding as though she is forcing herself to comply. As the tension settles, the others stand around in silence while Shiro notices the object at Mia's side. Looking at the fallen container, Shiro realizes there is still no explanation for how she got the insecticide in the first place. Shiro decides he will wait until she is calm enough to listen, because right now he has no proof and the ant problem has to come first. A sudden rustling from above interrupts the moment and draws everyone's attention. They look out over the rocky pass and realize that all the remaining ant-men seem to have fled, prompting the question of whether they should pursue them. Mia rejects the idea and warns that their unusual escape route is suspicious, explaining that they normally move together using pheromones, but this time they scattered as if protecting something. Shiro realizes the ants had all been avoiding this area and concludes that something important must be hidden there. The group arrives at a large cave entrance, and Shiro recognizes at once that this is the place. As they inspect the opening, Shiro notes that it looks like an ordinary large cave at first, but he quickly realizes it is actually concealing a network of anthills, just as he suspected. Seeing how far the tunnel stretches, the group concludes that whatever the ants were protecting must be deep inside. Mia repeats the question of what could be hidden there, and Shiro tensely answers that it is most likely exactly what he fears. Deeper inside, they come upon a queen-like figure seated in the cavern while two dark ant guards stand watch around her. The woman notices them immediately and calmly remarks that they are humans, adding that they did well to find this place. Shock spreads through the group as Shiru identifies her as the Ant Queen, leaving the others stunned by the revelation. Mia struggles to understand why a queen would be here at a border area, noting that each settlement should have its own queen, and that some species even have several. As the guards react, the queen orders them to stand down and directly addresses Shiro's group as the ones carrying strange weapons. The group is unsettled when the queen says she spoke to them directly into their minds, revealing a strange ability beyond normal speech. Asked why she alone has a human female form, the queen calmly agrees to explain. She begins by saying that long ago, the so-called woman in white appeared in their land. The queen explains that for generations her kind had been given that form and a special ability so they could communicate with one another. She continues that the woman in white bestowed mana on them, causing her soldiers to change, grow more violent, and gain the power to control others as they please. Shiro connects the explanation to biology, realizing the secretion is mixed with dopamine to create controlled soldiers, much like aphids feeding nectar to ants, and suspects that this is why they became more aggressive. The hooded guard apologizes for how their comrade died under his watch, but coldly adds that such conflict matters little because violence is inevitable as long as the woman in white desires it. The queen reveals they may already have gone too far, explaining that males from this village had entered the colony before and were forced into the nest's labor system, which would become a serious problem if the village learned of it. Mia is shocked as she recalls that some ant species force queens to produce offspring, and that related species like bees can show similar behavior. The guard grimly admits that treating living beings this way is close to what humans do, then brushes aside the moral weight of it and says it does not matter. As the queen hesitates, the small girl desperately urges her not to give up, while the others watch her reaction in tense silence. The girl tearfully says Shiru once saved her when she was close to death and begs the queen to stay alive for as long as she can. The queen quietly repeats those words to herself, as if the idea of continuing to live finally reaches her. She asks if his name is Shiro, and he confirms it without hesitation. With a faint, conflicted smile, the queen asks Shiru to take her with him and protect her, turning the moment painfully serious. She begins explaining that when she was young, her mother was mistreated by her own tribe, and she witnessed her being cast aside. She says her mother frantically held empty shells in her arms because the queen's brood looked the most insect-like, and there came a time when a parasite also needed nourishment. She explains that after failing in that role, her broken mother was forced into harsh labor by the tribe. She recalls that she could only watch from a nearby hole, powerless to help as everything unfolded in the shadows. Some days later, she says, her mother's body was left near the anthill, marking the end of that tragedy. Through tears, Sura says their tribe used to be far more peaceful before the woman in white arrived, and she believes her mother might have been saved if things had stayed that way. Sura says that if she must live in captivity, she refuses to end up like her mother, and in desperation begs for another path to survive. Mia reflects that although the exact forms differ, insect society and the world's laws both let the defeated become tools for the strong, and she says that in that case, survival may come down to choosing who controls her. The idea is coldly framed as nothing more than a long-term survival strategy. Shiro abruptly accepts Sura and says they will take her back with them, leaving the others stunned. He adds that if he explains it to Savannah as research material, they may be allowed to keep the ants, and Sura thanks him. Shiro makes it clear he wants nothing to do with Sura's desperate proposal because what truly matters is obtaining the queen and her followers, who can produce a substance that incapacitates beastmen. He realizes that if that substance can be spread through the beastmen's marketplaces, it would bring them one step closer to destroying the beastmen nation. He further considers that if the ants are secretly bred underground, they could become a private force to use against Savannah if necessary. The mood lightens as the girl says it is good to have more friends, while another remarks that Shiro keeps ending up around unusual women, and the comparison makes him look less like a scholar and more like a monster. Shiro urgently says he needs to contact Savannah at once. He reports to Savannah that they are now in battle and confirms that the repellent was effective enough. He adds that the nectar can still be used as a bargaining chip and says peaceful trade would likely be the best way to reduce casualties, then asks for Savannah's view. Savannah says they can review that after she returns and tells him to bring the report back with him. The call ends abruptly, and the others react in alarm as Savannah's name is called out. Back on Savannah's side, she asks whether things are going well, hears that a single pass is enough to get in and out, and calmly says that is good. She orders everyone to hurry and clean up, warning that they only have a few days left. In the rocky nest, the queen asks the girl's name, learns she is Sura, and coldly declares that because she is now a captive, she understands the situation. Shiro tells Sura that he intends to use her for experiments, and bluntly states that she is now free to decide how to deal with him. Sura quietly accepts his terms and says he may proceed as he sees fit. With Sura and the other ants in tow, the group returns to the Beastman village. While reporting on the nectar production and the possibility of peaceful trade, Shiro learned that Savannah had agreed to postpone the invasion for the time being. In the underground rocky lab, Shiro is amazed to see that the ants cleaned up the mess beneath the laboratory in the blink of an eye. He realizes the hidden site could serve as a shelter for the ants and a secret place to continue his experiments. Sura reminds him that he said he would experiment on her and asks if he plans to harm her, while Shiro sees her defiant attitude as despair rooted in her past and hopes he can help her recover. As he raises a syringe, Shiro admits his intentions are not entirely kind and says he is doing this because she told him to use her. He explains that the substance is reserpine, a drug that controls dopamine levels, and adds that it can be extracted from snakerd. Sura nervously asks whether it will work on her too, after hearing that it affects both humans and ants, and the moment turns tense as Shiro steps forward. As the effects begin, Sura reacts in distress, and Shiro notices her breaking down as he wonders if she has become like a crying child. Overwhelmed by emotion, Sura trembles, covers her face, and bursts into tears, while the cave fills with her cries. As the medicine takes hold, Sura looks shaken and wonders if this is what she was like when she was young. Crying uncontrollably, she fears becoming that way again as she grows older, asks why her mother had to die, and admits she is terrified. Shiro pulls her close and apologizes, saying he cannot bring her mother back. Instead, he tells her he can at least stay with her and comfort her. Sura clings to him through her tears, thanks him, and calls out for her mother as the moment softens. Later, Shiro asks how she feels, and Sura quietly steadies herself and says she does not feel bad at all. Sura admits it feels strange because she had spent so long dwelling on her mother's death. But now she feels more at peace, just as Shiro expected. Shiro reflects that the spirit the ants received from Mana seems similar to dopamine, which can alter the chemical balance in their brains. He explains that too much dopamine can make someone euphoric, irritable, and irrational, but the reserpine appears to have suppressed it. Shiro concludes that if he can give the ants regular doses, they may be freed from that control. Sura stays close to Shiro, thanks him warmly, and shyly insists she only did it for him even as he tells her there is no need to be embarrassed. Sura says she can sense that Shiro has longed for someone motherly, leaving him startled by how directly she reads him. Shiro asks if Sura had a difficult childhood, then says that if so, he wants to care for her. Flustered, Sura wonders why she is the one being comforted when Shiro was supposed to be healing her, but she still boasts that she is wiser than her years. Shiro remarks that Sura really is like a queen, and the comment leaves her blushing in surprise. When Shiro asks what is wrong, Sura admits she does not understand it herself, and says a sudden strange feeling has come over her as the atmosphere turns tense. Breathing unevenly, Sura looks overwhelmed and asks Shiro if he can stay close, leaving him caught off guard. Sura says she does not know why, but she feels so overwhelmed that she can no longer control herself, and the moment grows deeply uneasy. Shiro reluctantly lies down and reasons that enduring this awkward situation may also be part of his treatment plan. Sura remains flushed and unsteady as the interaction grows more uncomfortable and the tension becomes difficult to ignore. Shiro grows uneasy and admits he has some idea why things ended up like this. He realizes the woman in white was likely the one controlling the queen through pheromones. Sura shakily admits that after living as a queen for so long, she now feels like an ordinary person again, and the moment stays tense. As she collapses onto him in the cavern, the silence between them feels heavy and strained. Looking down at Shiro, Sura softly calls his name. With tears in her eyes, Sura begs Shiro to defeat the woman in white, avenge her mother, and rescue her country's people. Shiro tells her she has finally said what she truly wanted. He warns that opposing the woman in white could cause Sura's own country to suffer, but when he asks if she is sure, she firmly says that is fine. Sura admits that if things continue this way, her people will remain controlled forever. And even if defeating that woman demands sacrifice, she cannot accept such a future. Shiro reflects that, despite being deeply depressed for so long, Sura never stopped thinking about her people and sees her as a kind-hearted woman. Shiro reflects that he once believed the world only worked through the strong preying on the weak, but now realizes some people are not like that. Back in the village, people rush in panic and call for sensei at once, while someone asks what is wrong. They urgently report that the beast folk are moving to invade Antinos, leaving everyone stunned. The next warning is even worse, as they reveal the enemy seems to be using insecticide, and the others struggle to believe what they just heard. Shiro turns tense and shaken, unable to understand how such a thing could be possible, and dreads the answer forming in his mind. As he enters, the atmosphere shifts when the woman in white calmly calls him over, and the moment becomes deeply unsettling. The threat hangs over Shiro as the report echoes again that the beast folk are invading Antinos and are even using insecticide. One girl nervously suggests their information may have been leaked, while the other quietly wonders if she herself might have been the cause. Shiro immediately refuses to hear any more and, through tears and anger, demands to know why the woman in white is acting this way. The woman in white steps closer and coldly says she appreciates him covering for her, while Shiro realizes with alarm that he already knew she was the one protecting them. The blonde girl calmly admits that she was the one who gave the beast folk the details about the insecticide, insisting it is fine. She explains that before the expedition she saw some insecticide and, wanting Savannah's group to succeed, taught them how to make it and even gave them her ID card so they could obtain equipment, while someone is left. Wondering why she would do that despite always seeming devoted to peace. She says peace means little to her because she adores Sensei, and as long as he is safe, everything else is acceptable. In tears, she says that every time he acts like this, he puts himself in danger by volunteering to lead the expeditionary force. She confesses that she went even further and handed the beast folk the recipe for the insecticide so they would wipe out the ants. Shiro, shaken and pained, can barely ask how she could do something like this. As she crouches down in distress, Shiro turns away to leave, and she desperately calls after Sensei, asking where he is going and whether he will not even scold her. Without anger, Shiro says there is no way he could blame his precious student for this. He says he is going to meet Savannah and will try to persuade her to stop misusing them, adding that the fault lies not with the tools, but with the one using them. The others are stunned, wondering why he refuses to say a single word to condemn her even after she helped cause a massacre. Shiro enters the audience chamber and finds Savannah seated confidently on her throne, with armed attendants standing guard on both sides. Savannah grabs Shiro by the face, mocks his frightened expression, and taunts him for finally coming to confront her. Shiro furiously calls Savannah by name and demands that she stop using insecticide on Antinos immediately. Savannah asks if he expects her to stop the invasion, while a guard moves to intervene, but Shiro insists on speaking freely. Savannah coldly points out that it is already too late to turn back because countless bodies have piled up and reminds him that the advance force has already succeeded. She then suggests that if he cares so much, he should lead the suppression force himself, leaving Shiro stunned by the proposal. Savannah presses harder, saying he knows little about the ants and should be more familiar with his own weapons, so he ought to be able to handle the force. Shiro rejects the idea outright and begins to protest, clearly angered and shaken by what she is implying. Savannah steps closer and quietly pushes back against his objection, forcing him to hesitate mid-sentence. Leaning right beside him, Savannah challenges his confidence and asks whether he truly believed everything would unfold according to his plans. Shiro realizes Savannah is right and admits that even back then, when their information was being leaked, he chose not to say anything. He reflects bitterly that he could have seen this outcome coming. As his hand trembles, he admits the truth was simply easier to ignore. Savannah looks down at him and coldly remarks that humans truly are remarkable. Gesturing toward the products on the table, she says humans treat the lives of ants and beast folk as insignificant because they can create things like this without hesitation. Leaning in with a sharp smile, Savannah asks whether she and Shiro are really the same kind of villain. When Shiro gives the reaction she expected, Savannah says that is exactly why she likes him, and adds that she will be looking forward to what comes next. She then remarks that she approved of what he just did, making the moment feel uncomfortably personal as Shiro recoils in silence. Left kneeling alone beside the throne, Shiro is overwhelmed and wonders what he is supposed to do now. In the heavy silence, he quietly accepts the realization with a stunned acknowledgement. The Ant Queen calmly observes that the fighting has already begun. She asks why he is hesitating and reminds him that defeating the woman in white and her race will require sacrifices. She says she would actually prefer if he became a general, so that he might bring the conflict to an end sooner. She adds that she will support him by giving him detailed information about Antinos' geography and structure, which should give him an advantage. Shiro lets out a dark laugh, and the queen reacts in surprise as his mood suddenly shifts. As Shiro's intensity rises, he declares that he even has approval from an ant queen, leaving her visibly startled. Shiro steps forward with resolve, tells her to reveal everything she knows, and vows to strike at the enemy's heart to end the war in a single blow. The queen is caught off guard by the look in Shiro's eyes and freezes at what she sees there. She quickly rejects the thought that Shiro is cruel, insisting to herself that he is only being forced to take part in the slaughter. Watching him, she reflects that despite being a powerless human carrying this burden alone, Shiro has been under crushing stress ever since coming to this world, and she feels it would be understandable if he gave in to despair. The queen apologizes for forcing this role onto Shiro, says she believes in him, and calls his name with visible emotion. Shiro quietly thanks her and says she can leave everything to him. In the Beast Folk Nation's war planning room, Savannah announces that she has decided on the next invasion route. She points at the map and states that the army will go straight through that location, leaving the others confused. Savannah dismisses the objection and argues that taking this route is possible. She explains that they would only need to negotiate with the dragonfolk first. Elsewhere, one of the horned girls suddenly senses that someone is approaching, and the feeling unsettles her. Realizing the presence is drawing near, she tenses up as she concludes that someone is coming. A man accepts Savannah's offer, but only on the condition that the role of leading Antino suppression be reconsidered. Savannah gives a sly look and says she expected him to accept. Shiro says he has one condition. In exchange for his full cooperation, all arena slaves must be freed, leaving Savannah stunned. Savannah objects that the arena is a major source of funding, though she admits the proposal is interesting. Shiro coldly says that if she refuses, there is nothing more to discuss, and Savannah falls silent. Savannah warns him not to get carried away. Shiro says he understands her concern, but reminds her that this is the Beast Folk Nation's custom, and that he has already proven himself through the reconnaissance mission. He offers a compromise, suggesting they start by freeing 1/3 of the slaves, and if he defeats the ants, another third can be released. After a pause, Savannah asks what should be done with the final third. Shiro says they can keep that last portion as a source of revenue for now, and Savannah agrees to the arrangement. As he walks away, Shiro reflects that if his fighting can buy their freedom, then the terms are not so bad. He then admits to himself that he still needs money. Shiro sees that everyone has gathered and announces that, now that he has been appointed military commander, he will present the revised plan for the Antinos invasion. The others react with confusion and excitement, wondering why a human is leading them, while some note his cold demeanor and assume he must have made the new weapon. As the map is laid out, Shiro explains that it is based on the information recovered from the colony and is even more accurate than their previous understanding of the terrain. He points out that the enemy has already grown used to frontal attacks, and that the insecticide has only reinforced that habit. Shiro concludes that they should stop their scattered harassment and instead strike the main base by crossing the desert and attacking from the flank. A beast folk woman calls him an idiot and warns that the entire area is known as the Molten Desert, where anyone who enters dies without exception, but Shiro argues that crossing it would give them a major advantage, because the enemy would never expect it. Shiro insists that with the ants' captured knowledge and the information already gathered, they should be able to cross the desert, and he urges them to trust him. Someone answers that his confidence is remarkable, and Shiro calmly replies that history offers examples of such maneuvers. He cites the year 1917, explaining that T.E. Lawrence led 50 Bedouins through a deadly desert and won victories by striking the Ottoman Empire at key points, showing that history supports his plan. Even so, another voice warns that crossing the desert would still leave one more major obstacle waiting for them, the dragonfolk. Shiro asks about the dragonfolk and is told that their territory borders the region, that carrying weapons through it would be difficult, and that he likely could not defeat them in a fight. The others add that the beast folk and dragon folk are rivals, that he should expect no help from them, and that provoking them would only create more trouble. Shiro says he will explain the situation and ask for permission to pass, but someone immediately laughs and warns that they will never allow it so easily. Shiro calmly says that he is human, one of the weakest races in that world, and suggests that if he meets them first, he may at least be seen as someone open to negotiation. The beast folk woman is surprised by his confidence, but finally tells him that if he truly thinks he can do it, then he should go ahead and try. Shiro sets out alone, quietly repeating the matter of the dragon folk to himself as he heads into their settlement. As he studies notices on the wall, Shiro reflects that he chose the desert route because it should reduce casualties, but admits there has been little research on reptilian medicine and hopes he can at least find some useful clue. A loud commotion erupts nearby, and Shiro turns toward it with concern after hearing wild laughter from around the corner. He then spots Mia in a distressed state and is shocked by how far she has fallen. As Mia breaks down, another figure laughs and remarks that the former star of the academy has fallen unbelievably far. Mia is being harassed by two beast folk women as they crowd around her and talk about keeping her with them for their own amusement. Shiro steps in and demands to know what the two of them are doing to her. One woman suddenly recognizes him as Asada Shiru, the human now commanding the beast folk army, and realizes crossing him would be dangerous. Shiro coldly orders them to leave at once. The two women immediately back down, flustered and obedient as they nervously call him sir. After they run off, Shiro checks on Mia and asks what happened, while she weakly blames herself for everything. Mia explains that her conduct was reported to Savannah. She lost her position and belongings, and after being denied another chance in the arena, she was reduced to living in the slums. Shiro realizes that someone once held in high regard in the arena has now fallen so far that she is barely surviving. Desperate and shaken, Mia asks Shiro whether he has any of that drug left because she cannot endure her condition anymore. Shiro silently offers her the bottle and Mia stares at it in desperate relief as he tells her to take as much as she wants. Mia quietly thanks him as the mood suddenly shifts in surprise. Overwhelmed, Mia admits that whenever she takes the drug she cannot stop herself and only wants to forget everything. After a pause, Shiro asks if she is calmed down, and Mia quietly apologizes and says she has. Fighting back tears, Mia says she knows everything is her own fault and insists she does not deserve comfort from him. Shiro says that if there were a way for her to recover, he wants to know what she would do, leaving Mia stunned. Shiro reveals that he wants her to help him sell the drug in this town. He explains the plan to start by selling it cheaply, then raise the price after gaining customers, promising she could make a fortune and receive 10% of the profits. Mia struggles to believe him, but Shiro says he is trying to help before she sinks any further. Startled, Mia asks whether he truly means it, and says that after everything between them, it feels like their fates have become tied, then presses him to answer her offer. Through tears, Mia admits she misjudged him and says his help reaches her at the moment she needs it most. Mia clings to Shiro in tears and thanks him deeply, overwhelmed by the help he has offered. Steadying her, Shiro explains that by using the ant's iridomyrmecin, the silver vine powder can be spread throughout the entire town and turned into an even bigger business. He reasons that Savannah is keeping prices high by selling only to wealthy people, and warns that if that continues, even her own position could eventually be at risk. Shiro insists that will not be enough, saying he plans to distribute the substance to lower-ranked soldiers who normally could never obtain it. He breaks into a grim smile as his idea grows more ruthless. Shiro says the plan will slowly eat away at the beast folk nation itself as the substance spreads downward through society. Later, while traveling by carriage, Shiro notes that the map made for them has proven useful and says the Dragonkin nation should be straight ahead. The woman behind him jokes that if they are attacked, he can serve as a shield, and Shiro nervously blurts out that even he would be used that way. They spot a young Dragonkin girl lying on the ground, and Shiro realizes she looks badly hurt. The girl weakly begs for help and says she hurt her leg in a fall, while Shiro warns it could be a trap, but the woman says she cannot abandon an injured child and moves in to treat her. Shiro applies an ointment made from mugwort and aloe, explaining that he had already prepared the basic mixture back at the arena. The Dragonkin girl says the pain is slowly fading, then suddenly rushes forward before Shiro can react. She grabs onto Shiro and excitedly thanks him, calling him her savior, while he awkwardly tells her that is enough and that she should be resting. Smiling at him, she says he seems kind, then asks what feeling is hidden in his heart, making the moment oddly tense. Caught off guard, Shiro can only stare and ask what she means. The girl abruptly says they should get moving, and when Shiro asks where, she happily skips ahead. She reveals that he is heading for the Dragonkin nation and eagerly says she will guide him there. As Shiro notices her outfit and wonders if everyone in her country dresses that way, he quietly finds her appearance surprising. The woman sharply tells Shiro not to stare at the girl's clothes like that, and he flusters while insisting his thoughts were inappropriate. As the carriage moves on, Shiro reflects that despite the ointment working, her recovery still seemed unusually fast and wonders whether all dragonkin heal that quickly. Ryuri beams at the group and happily calls them her dear guests while announcing that they are almost there. As Ryuri sleeps peacefully after staying close to Shiro earlier, the others know that they are lucky she is guiding them and may arrive early, while Shiro quietly reflects on how suddenly she attached herself to him. Shiro thinks ahead, reminding himself that Savannah remains in the beast folk nation to handle the drug trade and defense, so everything there should stay under control for now. Ryori excitedly points ahead and says the destination is finally coming into view, while Shiro admits he cannot relax yet because he still needs to hurry back. The Dragonkin nation spreads out before them, and Ryuri proudly asks what they think as the others marvel that it feels completely different from the beast folk land. Ryuri cheerfully explains that they are in the middle of the Dragon Festival and says they are lucky, while also noting that Dragon Storm season is approaching after the full moon. Hearing that warning, Shiro grows uneasy and wonders what a dragon storm means, while Ryuri simply laughs and tells them to enjoy the sightseeing. The woman sharply asks whether there is any reason Ryuri insisted on bringing Alusha along, and Ryuri snaps back that there is no problem, leaving the atmosphere tense as Shiro awkwardly tries to smooth things over. Ryuri leads them to the next stage of the trip and declares that from there on, they will ride a wyvern, startling Shiro. As the creature spreads its wings, Ryuri explains that wyverns are the Dragonkin nation's main mode of transportation, and Shiro can only react in shock. As the wyvern carries them through the sky, one of the group warns everyone not to get thrown off, while another admires the view, and Shiro can only admit that the ride feels terrifying. They arrive before the Dragon Emperor's castle. Inside, the ruler of the Dragonfolk nation is revealed to be the Dragon Emperor. The Dragon Emperor recognizes Shiro as the man from the Beastkin nation who requested an audience, and Shiro formally introduces himself as Commander Asada Shiro. Shiro explains that they seek permission to cross the molten desert so they can advance on Antinos. Hearing that the Beastkin made a human their commander, the Dragon Emperor finds the matter intriguing. Shiro's side explains that Antinos is currently under the influence of a woman in white, that she is pushing them to attack neighboring countries, and that the nation has also been stockpiling weapons, meaning their own country could be targeted next. Shiro asks the Dragon Emperor to cooperate with them and fight Antinos together, insisting they only want to pass through, and the Emperor agrees that the request would make sense. The Dragon Emperor then reveals that the Dragonfolk are already allied with Antinos and bluntly tells them they are too late, shocking the group. He explains that, as part of that alliance, the current Princess Ryuri is set to marry the Imperial Prince during the Dragon God Festival. The Dragon Emperor reveals that the woman in white has decided to marry the Empress of Antinos. Shiro is stunned that such a marriage could happen between different races, but he is told that Dragonkin marriages have no limits of race or contact. The Emperor explains that once the wedding is completed, the Dragonkin will be bound to Antinos by blood, making it a true alliance. Shiro realizes this is a disaster, because if the Dragonkin and Antinos unite, the Beastfolk nation will stand no chance, and he will also lose his chance to stop the woman in white. He urgently warns that they cannot trust her, since the woman in white manipulates people into killing their own kind, and he insists it is far too dangerous to join forces with her. The Dragon Emperor admits that he does not trust her either, but says this is still the path the princess has chosen. He then introduces the Imperial Princess, revealing that her name is Ryuri. Shiro stares at her in shock as he realizes she is the same girl they met before. Ryuri laughs and cheerfully points out how surprised Shiro looks after being caught off guard. The Dragon Emperor apologizes and explains that his daughter Ryuri is unusual and enjoys playing pranks on their guests. The Dragon Emperor says that although Ryuri is still young, her authority as a princess is real. He explains that her heart is tied to the Dragon God, letting her sense other people's hearts and even glimpse the future, and says the Dragonkin have long entrusted their nation's future to those prophecies. Shiro protests that he has heard enough from Ryuri and insists they should stop and go back home. The Dragon Emperor coldly calls Shiro's outburst improper as Ryuri remains seated behind him. Shiro is shaken when he suddenly realizes someone has moved behind him without his noticing and wonders who it is. The Dragon Emperor calmly says that, as expected, a guest from Antinos has arrived, then pointedly refers to that person as his daughter-in-law. He asks the newcomer not to take offense at the rude attitude of his beast folk guest. Hearing the words daughter-in-law, Shiro freezes, recognizes the voice, and remembers hearing it back at the colony. He stares in alarm as the figure is revealed, realizing it is the woman in white. Shiro immediately identifies her as the same woman who has been manipulating events and fueling the conflict in Antinos. The woman in white declares that Princess Ryuri has already been promised to her, and says this will secure the alliance between Antinos and the Dragon Folk nation, while spelling bad news for Shiro. The Dragon Emperor says her claim is technically correct, explaining that a ceremony will be held soon where marriage candidates may stand before Ryuri, though anyone can participate. The woman in white reveals that the real decision has already been made in private, and bluntly states that Ryuri's chosen partner will be her. She mockingly pities the Beast Folk nation, tells Shiro to go home, and the exchange turns openly hostile. In the next instant, she vanishes, leaving Shiro and the others stunned as he blurts out that she is gone. The Dragon Emperor calmly remarks that her behavior